Hey everyone and welcome back to my channel. Let's take a look at what's in store today. In today's video we're going to be looking at cursed properties. Now those that have been playing Diablo Immortal from the start like I have will remember that originally we had the choice of using cursed properties on your gear or using the ancestral properties from Warband. Now I always went for the ancestral properties as this was more beneficial because originally cursed properties also had negative effects on your build. So originally you might have a cursed property active, but you would also take the negative effects that came with it, which would often be things like decreased damage or more damage taken, etc. So you can see currently in this setup I have no cursed properties active on any of my gear pieces, and what I'm going to do today is test a couple of the cursed properties out that work within my build. I'll talk through all of them in a moment and explain why I'm only going to be testing 2 of them in this build, and I want to see my damage before having them active and with having them active, because I'm not totally convinced that they actually make much of a difference to anyone. They do have some good ones for PvP, but generally in PvE they don't seem the best thing to use. So this is why I wanted to test it today. It's something I've been meaning to do for some time, especially since they removed the ancestral properties. As I said, this is something that I used to use originally, and I actually used to get more damage from the ancestral properties than what I ever got from cursed properties because of the negative impact that it also had on your build. So for this video, what I'm going to do is test for 30 seconds my build without the cursed properties. We're going to talk through what cursed properties are and which ones are available, and then I'm going to be testing out the same build with 2 of the cursed properties active to see how much damage we can get from it and if there is any kind of boost from that. So the first test without any cursed properties active, we've got 128 million damage in half a minute, so in 30 seconds, and 4.26 million per second. Now this is mainly coming from my primary attack, as you can see, and also taking a look at the different stats here. So the miscellaneous, so this is where cursed properties are listed. So we've got 24.5 million damage from miscellaneous. So this is things like Reforge, Family Bonus, Ancestral Properties, they still have that listed on there, which shouldn't be there, Cursed Gear and Paragon. So just to make it clear, for this video I will not be changing my set items. All I'm going to be changing for the whole thing is the cursed property, and we're going to be focusing on a couple of these to see what they do in the build and if they give more damage. So positive cursed properties preview. So we've got Ghosted, create an illusion when you use a buff skill. The illusion takes a portion of your incoming damage. Vexed, when your summons enter the battlefield, you let out a roar, dealing damage to nearby enemies. Lashed, your primary attack now has a chance to generate 3 cracking whips that target nearby enemies and deal continuous damage. Detested, create a dark void beneath you when you use a skill that causes a loss of control. Enemies that take damage every second they remain within the area. Nettled, after you gain a shield, every time you're hit you will counterattack all nearby enemies. Atrophied, when you deal continuous damage to an enemy, a dark field will appear under them, dealing additional continuous damage to any enemies that remain in the area. Wired, after you kill an enemy, release a surge of lightning that jumps between nearby enemies and deals damage to them. Blustered, when Thousand Winds deactivates, you send forth a tornado that targets the nearest enemy, knocking away and damaging enemies in its path. Tortured, leave a trail of lurid flames behind you when you use a dash skill. The flames deal continuous damage to any enemy caught in its path. So those are the different cursed properties that you can use, and a lot of these work in specific ways. So you can see some of them only work with specific types of skills like dash skills and buff skills. Some of them only work once you've defeated an enemy. So there's only particular ones that I'm going to be able to test today. So we're going to be testing out Lashed and Atrophied today. So both of these work with any kind of PvE build for any class, as long as you've got your primary attack in use and as long as you're using some continuous damage, so burn, bleed or poison, any of those effects will trigger Atrophied. So to start with, we're going to try Lashed. Your primary attack now has a chance to generate 3 cracking whips that target nearby enemies and deal 24% of your damage per second over 3 seconds to any enemies in their path. Additionally, when an enemy dies while still taking damage from a whip, it will explode for 24% of your damage. Effect cannot occur more often than once every 9 seconds, triggered when enemies are present. So obviously we won't see that second part of the effect with the explosion because the training dummy does not die. But in theory, we should see the whips 3 times in a 30-second burst. So let's see how many times we can get it to trigger. We've got 1 there straight away. So you might actually see this 4 times. Let's see if we get it come up again. 2. That's 2 times it is hit with Lashed now. Are you going to get a 3rd? Yep, 3 times. So we might actually get it to hit 4 times here. We've got 3 so far. Is there going to be another? Yeah, 4 hits from Lashed there. So it has given a lot of hits. We've also got an increase of 3 million per minute. So or per 30 seconds, sorry. So originally we had 128 million in 30 seconds. This time we have 131, and we're at 4.367 million damage. Next, we're trying Atrophied. So when you deal continuous damage to an enemy, a dark field will appear under them, dealing 24% of your damage every second for 6 seconds to enemies that remain in the area. Additionally, movement speed of enemies in the dark field is reduced. We won't see that, obviously, because we're doing this again on the training dummy. Effect cannot occur more often than once every 30 seconds. So this one doesn't trigger as often as Lash does. So we should see Atrophied. We should see the dark void appear at least once in the 30-second test. It'd be quite nice if it appeared at the start and towards the end of the 30-second test. So we'll try this out now, and the reason why there's only 6 pieces active for it is because that is the maximum bonus you can have, is 6 pieces of each cursed property. So actually we've got the void appear straight away there, you can see on the ground, and this is the only cursed property active for the test, similar to when I did Lash. I only had 1 cursed property active. I'll see if we get this come up again. Obviously, because it is only once every 30 seconds, we may not get that. We are using Vitus in this build, 4 pieces of that, so that obviously keeps your beneficial effects going, and I guess cursed properties are technically a kind of buff, so it may make them last a little bit longer. There we go, we had it appear right at the last second there in that 30 seconds, and we have just 1 million damage extra with that active in this build. So yeah, taking a look again, actually there's 0.5 million, so 500,000 less damage from the miscellaneous here. So that means the extra damage isn't actually coming from Atrophied, it's coming from somewhere else in this build. So it might have been that I got an extra couple of hits in for my primary attack, or extra damage from one of my skills. So not the result I was kind of expecting from that. But yeah, I kind of expected a little bit more, but obviously this one doesn't trigger very often. So lastly, we're going to test using 4 pieces of each. So we've got 4 pieces of Atrophied, and we've got 4 pieces of Lashed active here. Now, I did not waste any of my Curse Purification Stones for this because I had well over 2,000 at the start of this video. And I still got just over 2,000 left now as well. So it didn't take too many to actually test this out and use for this video. So this is the last 30-second burst. I'm hoping that this will give even more damage. Obviously the damage increase so far has been quite minimal. The best increase has been from Lashed, and that is one that I did actually have in my build for some time. But obviously for the purpose of this video, I did reset all my curse properties so that I could do this test fairly, and I wanted to make sure that I had no curse properties active at the start. So we're coming up to the 30-second mark now, and it doesn't look like this is much more damage than it was at the start. Yeah, so in 30 seconds with both curse properties active, we have the exact same damage as we had without any curse properties active. And you can see it is still 24 million from the miscellaneous, which is the same as it was without any curse properties active. So findings are kind of weird for the curse properties. Obviously, the best place to test them is the training dummy. There's nowhere else that I can test them and get a consistent result, or an honest result, an average result. Obviously the training dummy has the exact same effect with mobs, and that is a little bit unreliable because you might get different mobs, you might get the ones that have more health, etc. But yeah, for me, a curse property is worth it. Personally, I would say not really. You kind of expect a little bit more damage than what we got there. In my opinion, I would expect a lot more damage than what I got having 2 curse properties active. I may use Lashed in my build again, but I don't really think they're actually worth it, in my opinion. If in PvP, yep, some of them are great. I would go for the one that gives you the shield. So Nettled, that one that gives you the extra shield there, and counterattacks, that's pretty good in PvP. Or obviously using Detested, which helps when you're using a loss of control skill. That will help with some of the wizard builds. But yeah, that's it from me today. Let me know what you think of curse properties in the comments below. I still don't completely trust that they don't have a negative effect on your build, but that's just me being suspicious. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed the video and found it helpful, As always, have a great day. I'll see you in the next one.